Good day, everybody. From the law firm of Shihab Burke, we are today at 6 o'clock, our last session for the year of 2024, bringing you a look back at 2024 and a look forward at 2025. I'm Sam Shihab, and with me,
Brian Burke.
we are immigration attorneys from the same law firm that I just mentioned, and we practice immigration law throughout the U.S. We do employment immigration and we do family immigration. We get together every Monday at 6 o'clock to discuss a topic of interest, share an hour with you. Brian and I have been busy today practicing and running around taking care of people on a last minute basis. Haven't had a chance to talk to Brian too much, so we get to talk to each other,
Yeah.
which is a wonderful thing. So we're doing a look back, Brian, at
Yeah.
2024. And 2024 was an interesting year. The total number of green cards was a little bit less for employment immigration in 2024. Let's start with that one. 165,000 green cards were allocated as opposed to 197 in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a drop in the number of processing based on the
Visa availability.
picking up of family cases at the consulate.
Yeah.
So USCIS claims that they have had a record visa approvals this year, as they do every year, and record number of filings in 2024, and of course, record number of pending applications. So nothing has changed in 2024 in terms of what we're expecting. They're processing more visas and more visas coming, and they're getting more behind, which is frustrating a little bit for those guys whose visas been pending for many years. They're not seeing a significant really movement in the visa bulletin. And I would have to say we come to a closure, an end to the approvals. One of the reports I just saw recently about 2024 is record EB5 filings,
Yeah.
record EB1 approvals
Mm-hmm.
this year compared to prior years.
Yeah.
Was that your experience, Brian, this year?
Yeah. An approval, a good time to be filing immigration cases in 2024. That's for sure. It has been an approval-centric environment. I had filed some sort of types of visas where I thought, this isn't going to get approved, and well, not get approved, but this is going to be a close one, and then got them approved without RFEs. Things like that. Relatively smooth sailing is my. But me, Sam. I'm pretty conservative with what I tell clients and what kind of cases I'll take on. I'll take on cases I think are winnable. And if I don't think they're a great case, I'll warn people that you're taking a gamble here. So I don't feel surprised by my personal results, but I guess if that's sort of unanimous across the board, fantastic. Everybody had a good 2024 year in immigration. Sure.
Yes. Surveys have been giving more sentiment to the fact that for employment immigration should be given top priority over family immigration.
Yeah.
This is the people, how people feel today. There was a Pew Research Center conducted a survey, and I think 42% of the people said they believe that we're not doing enough for employment immigration, and they believe that the government should focus more on employment immigration approvals over family immigration.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that keeps me sort of optimistic for important categories like EB1A and EB5 in the future. I think what I always tell people, especially about both those categories, especially about EB1A though, I tell them, for an EB1A case, I think the average person in the U.S. doesn't know anything about immigration policy. But I would say if you ask them who should be allowed to immigrate to the United States, they'd probably describe an EB1A person, or maybe to a lesser extent, an EB5 person. So I'm optimistic that those programs can continue, largely unharmed and unhinged as we think about 2025.
Here's an interesting fact
Mhm,
that will blow your mind. Um, in recent years and in 2024,
mhm.
immigrants have paid more than $500 billion in taxes to our government. And that will continue next year in terms of people saying, well, how much are we contributing
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
uh, the economy? So we have paid the figures that have been released this year, 2024, really went back and looked at 2022. We don't have 2023 or 2024
Mhm.
numbers yet, but the 22 numbers that were released this year was $579 billion in taxes. Immigrants for to the IRS to help this government fund their programs,
Yeah.
which is massive.
Quite the hefty amount. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Um, Obviously, we continue to provide an incredible support for healthcare. The number of foreign doctors and foreign nurses continue to
Huge. Yeah.
increase. Um, um, More than 15% of all nurses are foreign.
Mm.
That percentage holds this year as well. So, I mean, immigrants and the immigrant community in 2024 has made a major positive impact on the U.S. economy. And I don't anticipate that to change next year um, with the new position that Trump, President-elect Trump, President and President-elect Trump has indicated with the back and forth on X
No fair, Sam
regarding
Shihab.
the H-1B visa.
You're segueing to 2025, what looks for the future, and I want to get my 2 bits in for 2024. You talked about, a lot about the statistics and, what immigrants have accomplished. I want to speak briefly before we segue to 2025. What has immigration done to people? What has been done in immigration law in 2025? And I just sort of, especially in employment and immigration, here's what I want to hit upon, just to remind everybody what we got in 2024. Um, One, new H-1B rules, which everybody shouldn't be able to forget about those. We got those just a couple of weeks ago. So that's what we're getting at in 2024.
That
And
counts in the 2024. I agree.
yeah, that counts. And the other, it's also the subject is new. The other big subject is new H-1B rules. It's the new H-1B cap rules that went into effect for the first time earlier for fiscal year 2024, affecting the H-1B cap registration in March. It's the old one person per one count per passport category. It's that H-1B program. So combine that with the very recent rule changes we got is I wouldn't I wouldn't say we have a whole new H-1B program. Definitely not. I think we have more of like an older version of the H-1B program. We kind of travel back in time to, in terms of the H-1B program, in terms of policy. I think we're going to get an H-1B program. Oh, Sam, look at me. I'm segueing to 2025. Look at me. Um, Stop me if you want to stay in 2024 any longer. But we have it's different. Also, as part of those H-1B rules, I don't know if we call this as 2024 or 2025 thing, is the increased fee for the H-1B lottery. It hasn't been implemented. It will be implemented this year, but we are going to look at a fundamentally different H-1B program in a year in the future. I'll talk a little bit more about what's happened in 2024 in terms of the employment-based immigration. The last thing that sticks in my mind is the changes in the labor certification program, mainly the new ETA 9089 form. Which this is probably something that's relatively transparent to the people in our audience, so I won't dwell on it too long. But there's a new, if you're wondering why your perm case is taking extra long, even longer than the year it was taking, it's called, they implemented a new version of the perm form, which people tell me they think if they watch the numbers like tea leaves that they're getting faster. I don't know if they are, Sam, because it's taking about a year and in 3 months in order to get a perm out of the Department of Labor. So there's that.
So the best of the best for 2024 and the worst of the worst in 2024. Let's start with the best.
Okay.
Uh, I
I guess
think,
we'll each give one, and we'll yeah.
yeah. So for me, the best in 2024, in my opinion, is the backing off on H-1B denials for any reasons. We've had a great run for approvals, really on most fronts.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, to me, is the best of 2024, and this whole era of the Biden administration is we really had a great approval rate and fair-minded USCIS.
Yeah, I won't argue too long with that one. I mean, I have had that approval positive climate help me get some visas approved, and people who I think should be eligible for the visas, but maybe just the evidence wasn't as good as I thought it would be. Great stuff. I'm going to choose my best. I'm going to call this falls in the net win category. The new H-1B cap policy, one registration per person. If I had to pick a thing that I think is probably better for a whole lot of people, it's got to be that. It takes a lot. It puts a little bit more power in the control of the worker themselves when it comes to an H-1B visa. You're not. If you've been selected with one, you've been selected with anybody else. There's no gamesmanship by employers, and there's no incentive for the employers to play games either. You know, collude. It equalizes the H-1B program. The person who is running to 10 different companies no longer has an advantage, and that is something that is, I would just generally call desirable. What's your big bad for 2024, Sam?
Well, I have a long list, Brian,
Oh
but
yeah.
I'm committed to giving you only one, right? And because I'm committed to giving you only one, I'll give you only one. The total and absolute lack of creativity to come out with any meaningful solution to the backlog, to the processing time, to the inefficiency. The system is broke, and everybody seemed to kind of accept that it's broke, and nobody's coming out with solutions. No one's coming out with any solutions. Administrative action, there's no administrative decisions. Like, Obama championed DACA. He went out and he said, you know what? I'm going to break it. Let everybody go to hell. I'm going to fix this.
Yeah.
He came out with DACA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fighting
Okay.
the courts. Yeah.
Yeah. There was no landmark decision or administrative decision that turned that ship in at least a degree or two in the right direction. That did not happen last year or even in the Biden administration altogether.
Yeah.
So that's mine.
I'm gonna maybe say my downside. I would say the number one challenge for the layperson to understand U.S. immigration is the absolute lack of transparency from the government on anything, and that's something that continues. And everything we do, the most common questions are, "Why is it taking so long? Can you tell me how long it will take?" And the government tools for telling you, where your case is and how long it's going to take are useless. I'll tell you a 30-second anecdote, Sam. I talked to a gentleman earlier this year who had originally immigrated from somewhere in the Middle East to Canada, and then was going to immigrate to the United States. And he had questions about his case, about how long it would take, and how it would process. He said, "Brian, can we just email the officer who's working on my case and ask them a question?" And my answer was no. Welcome to America. Well, he said, well, in Canada, I could call them up and talk to them, ask them if they needed anything or how the case is going, or I knew the officers' names. I say, welcome to the United States. I told him the story of I once walked into a USCIS officer's office, for an interview, and they had their name card turned face down on their desk, so I couldn't even know their name. This is the absolute lack of transparency. How long does anything take to process? Who knows? How long is it going to take us to get to your case at the consulate? I don't know. Where's my case? Where's my number in the queue? First in, first out. We'll let you know where you are, and when you get an approval, that's when your place in line was. And that's, for me, is the thing that is, it's not only a 2024 bad, it's a 2023, 2022, 2021. I think it might be a 2025 bad as well, Sam. But let's talk about the future a little bit.
Let's talk about future. Well, the future is interesting. So we just had a glimpse of the unpredictability of Trump when he said, "I like the H-1B program."
Yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about. Yes.
In August of this year, he said 100% of new jobs is going to immigrants. Um, that fuels anger, right?
Yeah.
For people. I mean, this is not exactly very positive. Basically, they're stealing the jobs. And he brought no distinction between people on visas or permanent residents or U.S. citizen
Yeah.
immigrants.
Yeah.
He called them all immigrants, put them in one brush, and he said, "This group of people, be it U.S. citizen, foreign born, let's put it that way, foreign born, are the ones sucking all your jobs." That is something that is very divisive and negative. Obviously, he was going after votes. Then now he says, "I like the H-1B visa program."
So here's.
So, so looking at 2025, Brian,
Mhm.
welcome to the roller coaster ride of good, bad, who knows?
Well, here's what I did not have a predictor for December or almost 2025 that we're on right now is that I would be reading big news stories about, the talk about H1B visas in the media, the president commenting on H1B visas about their place. It was not on my list for this. I was Sam going into the weekend. I was not expecting to see talk about this, and then suddenly my entire news feed. Obviously, my news feed is biased towards things relating to immigration, but I'm getting hit with the wall of conversation about the value of H-1B visas. And I'll tell you one thing. It's funny about this um, maybe falls in the category of lack of transparency from the government, but I don't really think the average person has any clue what an H-1B visa is about. I was just sort of reading the internet comment section because I can't resist to read these things, and people were talking about, linking to some website that said H-1B visas for grocery store cashiers, and the comments were like this. Well, I don't see any openings. I don't know what they were looking at, and the answer, and somebody's comment was the ominous, "That's the point. There are no openings because they've all been filled." You know, and to think about that, I'm thinking, okay, so I have to break this down. First of all, there's no chance in hell that anybody's going to get an H-1B visa approval to work as a grocery store cashier. And also, I think they're maybe looking at Department of Labor wage data. It's just the lack of knowledge that people have about H1B visas, and maybe it's just a bit of casual racism that you sometimes, that as soon as you see somebody who looks different from you, that you think they're in the United States on a working visa, taking a job from me, from somebody else. And again, I don't think people intended, but I don't think people understand our immigration system at all, really.
Yeah. Um, I mean, the number of unfilled IT jobs, I don't know what the number is, the number of unfilled IT jobs with the federal government, which requires U.S. citizen only.
Yeah.
These have, some of them have security clearances or export controls, um, is staggering, and the federal government can never fill these jobs.
Yeah.
And so don't tell me there are no jobs for American workers. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well,
Unemployment rate is about 3%, 4% right now. And when you talk about in the technical field or engineering field,
mhm.
I mean, it's almost non-existent.
Well, one of the sort of you know narrative trends from the talk about H-1B visas in the news lately is people saying H-1B visas drive down the wages of U.S. workers, um, and the answer is, Department of Labor is and I've seen basically studies reporting, one way or the other, and I don't know, it's just sort of an interesting paradigm there. Maybe that's where the H-1B policy goes, and that's where the H-1B policy went before. And during the prior Trump administration, they went ahead and said, we're going to change the way we calculate the H-1B wages. So maybe it gets changed such that, I think it was like the level 4 was the 90th percentile, and they just basically updated all of the wage levels. Maybe that's how they attack this issue. No, don't attack the visa itself, but change the way you calculate the wages
Yeah.
there. But again,
What else 2025, Brian?
okay,
2025.
so generally
Couple more minutes before you start answering questions.
more dialogue about employment immigration, because I do believe nobody in the United States understands U.S. employment at all. People, and I'll leave this topic on this subject, Sam. Is people always, I don't know, people come to me and I'm an immigration attorney. They say they seem to think it's really easy to immigrate to the United States through employment. The answer is no. It's the option if you don't have any other ties to the United States, essentially. So there's that. Um,
Birthright citizenship. Fight.
Birthright citizenship. So
So that is going to be coming up, or maybe not. Maybe it is just a marketing, you know?
it sounds like a Supreme Court decision to me. It's built into the, which amendment is it, Sam? I can't remember, 14th or 12th. I can't remember. That,
I think 14th Amendment.
that those who
But,
are born in the United States subject to its laws are
but
citizens.
the question is this a marketing or is this something now? Because obviously, I'm going to deport everybody now as becoming, I'm going to deport only criminals,
Yeah.
which exactly what the Biden
It's everybody's
administration is
policy
doing
is, yeah.
and what the Obama administration
Well,
has been
I will
doing.
tell you what a potential difference is, because everybody's policy is always deport all criminals. But if you devote more resources to deportation of criminals, you could, in theory, deport more people. You know?
Well, Obama was called the deportation in chief.
Yeah,
He deported more people than any president before him in a long time, or ever maybe,
yeah,
or anybody after him.
yeah.
So maybe his goal is to beat Obama's record.
He doesn't.
Uh,
He doesn't like Obama and loves trying to beat him in things. And that's for sure. I mean, how does it impact employment immigration? I mean, the most likely the thing that sort of scares me, because again, what they said initially was discretionless deportation. Because if you're found to be unlawfully present in the United States, we're going to remove you. The thing that scared me about that, Sam, is it's the 100-mile border zone, right? Or
the
people are going to,
administrative removal.
yeah, administrative removal. My nightmare scenario is this: is like almost like once every 2 weeks, Sam, somebody comes to us with a nunc pro tunc scenario, right? A nunc pro tunc. Oops, I let my I-94 expire due to some crazy situation, and now I have to fix it. And those people are unlawfully present in the United States. And if you really kind of rev up immigration enforcement, I could see the deportation authority of the United States government to be more likely to touch employment-based folks for smaller things, especially if you're in the 100-mile from a border administrative removal zone.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on
Okay.
and talk about Q&As.
Q&A.
2024 survived it. I think not a great year, not a bad year. There's good, there's bad, average, C plus, B minus. 2025, fasten your seatbelt. We have no idea. Until the end of the year, we'll give it a grade. This is the time where we switch gear and answer questions you may have. And between Brian and myself, not exactly 50 years of immigration law experience. Maybe it is. I don't know. 45, maybe.
Yeah, I think probably somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we will answer your questions. And we don't have enough information to give you a full answer because you give us a small piece of background and we will give you as much of an answer as we can. But please do not rely on this information. Consult with an attorney of your choice to make an informed decision about your future and your case. Make sure that you're always giving your attorney the full facts of your case and they're able to review your documents and able to give you an advice in a comprehensive way. Be that as it may, we'll do the best we can, but just don't assume there's an attorney-client privilege or relationship established, I should say, because there cannot be one under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Without further delay, we are going to take the first one, Brian.
Yes, from Anonymous here. Company shut down 180 days after I-140 approval, but I-485 was not pending 180 days at the time. Employer didn't revoke I-140 before shutting down. Can I wait till my I-485 is pending 180 days to file Supplement J? Now, this is a tough scenario, but I want to first, maybe challenge the premise. What does shutting down mean? There is the I-140. When is it? So maybe we'll talk about when is an I-140 automatically revoked? An I-140 is automatically revoked when a company goes out of business by action of law. As it's been a while since I've read the rules on that, but I believe you'll agree with me on that.
Yeah.
So, but my problem is so this question is basically saying, hey, when does portability attach? If my company shuts down within 180 days, am I eligible? And my fundamental question is, what do you mean by shut down? Because the very first thing this is a tough scenario, and the very first thing I would want to know is, what does shut down mean? If you're not employed there, that's not a requirement. It's is is the company still operating? If they've laid off a bunch of people, if they're still closing up affairs, I'd say maybe there's some interesting things to think about regarding that, Sam. But what do you feel
I
about it, Sam?
begin. Yeah, I begin my analysis in a little bit more direct way.
Okay.
I ask myself the question: um, is there a bona fide job offer? At the moment, the company shut down. So, and I think that's what you're trying to get to.
Hmm.
Um, if there is no bona fide job offer, 180 days have not passed since the I-45 has been pending, and that's a vulnerability.
I would
It's the
agree.
case.
Yeah.
Um, however, how is that communicated? What's your understanding?
That's the
Was,
question I'm
was
asking. Yeah.
was there a communication? So this is highly factual.
Because the I-140 hasn't been revoked, Sam. And the I-140 is the representation of the bona fide job offer. I would say, if they don't, but then if the company hasn't shut down, that would revoke the I-140 as well. Would be that's a communication. If you communicate, if go ahead, Sam, continue your thoughts. But
No,
I think we're on the same idea.
yeah. Well, I mean, the back and forth between you and I reflects the complexity of the question and the fact that this is an excellent question to start
Yeah.
to deal with, because the question is, when I walk into USCS after, let's say, I get 180 days, and then I go into a different job. Let's say I do an AC-21 and file a supplement J and I get it, and then now 5 years later, 10 years later, if Anonymous is born in China or India,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now he is trying to get a green card, if it's based on AC-21, are they going to go back and say, wait a minute, between October 15th of 2024, 12 years ago, and December 1st of 2024, also 12 years ago, you had a pending I-45 for this company. You filed your AC-211. Your employment was after that, but the company shut down.
Yeah.
The chances of that happening is very, very
Yeah.
slim.
Well, yeah, I want to point out Anonymous has a follow-up here, and they asked sort of the question that we were focusing on. Will USCS still consider my I-140 valid because the company no longer exists and the employer never revoked my I-140 before shutting down? And
That
that's
confirms. So for me,
Mhm.
the way I would look at this case, and my advice to this person is the I-140 is not withdrawn. You have a great potential vulnerability. Is not a big one, but there is definitely a potential hole.
Yeah.
The size of that hole is not very big, but I don't like to have a hole in my case whatsoever. I'd like to have my case to be airtight. Uh, there's a hole that big in this case, and that makes me nervous. So you need to cure it. Really, I don't have to worry about this case. I just need to understand that I got a vulnerability, and the way I would do it is, unless you've received a clear communication that there's no future job offer, I would go ahead and unless there is a complete shutting down, meaning that the corporation ceased to exist, which is not likely because
Yeah, it's
it
complicated.
takes years sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, Take advantage of AC-21, move forward, but clearly begin at the earliest opportunity with a new perm,
Yeah.
new I-140, new I-140, and a new adjustment of status. That I-140 priority date remains valid regardless. There's no problems there,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
therefore, and that's how you work around it and not worry about the argument of well, they shut down, but there was a bona fide job offer because they told me this. They
Yeah.
didn't close the, and then,
Yeah,
and
that's like something
yeah,
you litigate essentially. And my answer to this is, if you know you have it, it's the same as yours. If you know you have a problem, you hedge. You basically protect yourself, and the way you protect yourself is maintain your non-immigrant status, find another employer, do perm and I-140. Meaning, great, if you get a green card this way, fantastic. And if you don't, you'll have another, labor certification, I-140,
I
I,
agree.
and the queue. Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
All right.
So.
Good one. Good
Oh
one.
yeah, very great. Good question. From BA, can you estimate how long it takes to do follow to join visa for my wife in an African country?
Well, follow to join is a two-part process. As a matter of fact, I just got on the phone today. Is it with the IA
I
21,
24. Yeah, I
24, I 24?
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
You
so
can do,
it's a two-part process. Filing the form and getting the National Visa Center to say, "Oh, I was informed of the following to join," right?
yeah,
And then actually doing the consular processing. It's a two-step. And the first, you're looking puzzled.
Well, I'm trying to think on the I-140 form. If you because on the I-140 form, you can tell them about your family. You can tell everybody what you're doing, whether you're applying for a visa abroad or adjustment of status in the United States. If you complete your I-140 form as to indicate they're going to apply for visas abroad,
You
they
can
might
skip
do it
that.
automatically. Yeah,
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 that's a possibility, right?
yeah.
Yes.
But
Um,
but you're right. Most likely, it's going to be an I-824 scenario.
yes,
And
if you have not informed USC, the national, then actually going through the process and processing the visa
yeah,
and then if you're current, it's the consular processing timeline.
yeah,
And in Africa, you just throw in a little bit of a wrench here. Of course, which
ooh.
African country is relevant? But recently, we have been suing.
Raise your hand if you've sued the consulate in Nigeria this year, because we have. You know.
uh, or other countries,
Yeah,
and yeah, they're not on top of it, or they're shorthanded, or they're struggling to ratify certain information about people, and they just sit on cases
yeah,
for a long time, and that is a big problem. So that is a completely separate challenge in some parts of Africa that we've been witnessing.
yeah.
Um,
Sub-Saharan Central Africa, I'd say, all across that band is misery at the consulates. Now, BA has a note here for us. I have not done my I-485 yet, so if I'm presuming that BA is on a non-immigrant visa like an H-1B that allows them to work in the United States, I'd say do your best to get your spouse here on an H-4 visa, for example, presuming they're eligible, and get them here now so they don't have to follow to join, because consular processing is to be avoided at all costs, in my estimation.
yeah.
Again, I don't know BA's full
Why
story,
are
but
you doing that? Yeah,
yeah,
maybe she doesn't want to come here. But if get her an H4 visa if she wants to. Maybe she's studying abroad,
yeah,
or she does not want to come to the United States. Get the H4 visa if you're on H1B. Get the TED visa if you're on the TN. Get the spouse visa,
yeah.
and get the stamp. And don't come into the U.S.
Until you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you
Because
having a hard time hearing me, Brian?
no, no,
Um, so with that, once you get closer to this adjustment of status, you almost always going to get an RFE.
yeah,
Once you get the RFE, bring your spouse over here, file the adjustment for her.
yeah,
And
yeah.
once you get the advanced parole, which is going to take a while, you can leave.
Yeah, avoid consular processing it's not pleasant. It's never pleasant. It's
Yeah.
nobody wants to go through consular processing. Everybody wants to be in the United States and apply for a green card. You can stay here
Yeah.
while your green card's pending.
Yeah.
From Ajay,
My I-45 was transferred from TCS to National Benefit Center in 2022. Should I send my 485J to NBC or TCS or both?
it dep- um, it depends upon why you're filing an I-485
I think it's
J.
in instructions, right? It tells you.
So they have a special website that says if you're doing a transfer underlying basis, here's how you do it. And if you're not, you send it to the case. Presumably, you send it to the case. You're going to be sending it to where. But you're right. There's going to be instructions there. I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, read the instructions because the instructions change so
Yeah.
frequently. By the time somebody listens to this YouTube, if you tell them to go somewhere, Brian,
This is true.
it's gonna be
Yeah.
wrong information.
Yeah.
The location where cases are filed are in some intricate, boring couple pages of confusing instructions that they update and they switch around all the time
Yeah.
based on workload.
Yeah, the page I'm looking at was literally updated yesterday. So, sorry, 12/20/27, meaning who knows?
2 days
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. Let me see here. From AK, if a company is acquired and the acquiring company is assessed an interest, do they have to file an I-140 amendment for my approved I-140 employer and EIN change, but actual job duties remain the same? So,
The infamous successor in interest.
yes.
Not every company that acquires another company becomes a successor in interest for immigration law purposes.
Yes.
And that is going to depend on the way it was acquired and what's in the fine print.
Yeah. And that's really kind of it, as to the actual filing, to my recollection.
You have to file an I-140 amendment as a successor in interest for sure.
Yeah.
Which
It's
one
been
to
it's been a while since
remember?
I've done the research.
We've done so much. Yeah, you do have to file an I-140 amendment as a successor in interest
Yeah.
to show that the
You are. Yeah,
successor
you are. Yeah. Yeah.
is a immigration meets the requirement for immigration purposes,
Yes,
which
but
is assumption
mhm.
of
Yeah, you're
assets
right.
and
Yeah.
mostly liabilities, the immigration liabilities, and that assumption has to be either by a full stock purchase or if it is an acquisition of a part of the company through a asset purchase agreement. It has to be in the asset purchase agreement that the purchasor has acquired the liabilities, has accepted the liabilities.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I've written it. Yeah, it's all in my head now. The question is, Sam, when do you have to file that I-140 successor in interest? Because AK is sitting here, bouncing up and down, telling his employer, "I want it filed now." But is there any point of it doing it right now for him? Would be the thought. And basically, if your priority date's not current, I might not see the sense of it. You know?
no, I do see the sense of it, Brian,
Oh yeah.
because and who is the last person to be informed about an acquisition?
The immigration attorney, Sam. The immigration attorney.
And before the immigration attorney, the employee.
Yes, it's true. Yeah.
Okay, and if this person does not do the amendment now
Yeah.
or within a reasonable period of time, that opportunity and that record and that all that can be gone with a subsequent acquisition.
That's
Now you're being acquired a second time,
a good point. Yeah.
and now you have to jump the two of them, and that can be difficult.
I will agree if AK is being the best advocate for themselves, of course.
I would do it within a reasonable period of time, be it
Yeah.
within 90 days of the acquisition. There's no risk of not doing it immediately, but I would do it within a reasonable period of time.
Yeah, with an employer and EIN change, there has to be a successor in interest scenario, and I think the question for AK to figure out if he does need an amendment would be to or whether there's a successor in interest, he can sort of snoop it out. Is I wonder if AK's employer filed a new H-1B for him when he changed employers and EINs.
I would suggest to you, Brian, that a lot of employers don't follow the law strictly, so that may not be your clue.
That's a very very good point. So when we've been through this process, basically it's if you're not going to require an H-1B amendment, you're not going to require. But yeah, you're going to be.
The companies that does the worst are the larger corporations.
Yeah. It's called
They just basically don't give a darn about.
I mean, we've encountered this before. It's basically they have some very much yes men immigration counsel that are very happy to make their corporate client happy and say I saved you X amount of money with some sort of crackpot legal theory. Yeah.
So if there is a successor in interest, in other words, you have to have a new H-1B filing.
Yeah.
Just to
The
make
rules
it.
are a little bit different, but yeah, one would tend to point to the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from Simo, hey guys, what are your predictions for EB3 Rest of the World Visa Bulletin next year? My priority date is May of 2023. Any thoughts when DF/FAD dates for filing final action might be current? So I will give you my bold prediction. It will move forward slightly during the next fiscal year, not in leaps, but gentle, gentle steps forward. Because I think, as one of the things Sam was talking about, visa availability for this year is 150,000 employment. It just doesn't seem to have the space to allow great leaps forward. I expect classic historical miserable visa bulletin movement for the foreseeable future of weeks at a time, if we're lucky, not months or large jumps. With a priority date of May of 2023, as I look to the visa bulletin, rest of the world, EB3. Oh, you got only 2 months to go. It's not crazy that it could get there in the fiscal year for dates for filing. You know, wouldn't be surprised. So Ajay Shah says Emma keeps on giving. Emma, for those that are not familiar, is the USCIS chatbot, maybe AI driven, maybe sometimes driven by people. Depends upon who you ask and when you ask it. Tool on the USCIS website to ask questions. Sometimes it says where the original application was filed. Other times it's where your application resides. Or should I send to both? And would that cause delay? So again, all this is about depends upon.
Emma, for me, is the last person you want to consult.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Because it is, number one, you cannot, like, for example, if you mailed it to the wrong place, you can print that page, or you can take screenshots showing, well, USCIS told me to send it to this address. If you file a motion to reconsider, if it's made in the wrong address, Emma, it could be a glitch that day. It could be send it to
Ajay
Guantanamo.
understands why you don't trust it because they say, well, that's not what it says. That's not what it says. You asked it the wrong question.
Yeah.
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 So also from Ajay, current on January 1st, should I do anything to be ready medical? Should I raise congressman request or service request to expedite? Already sent 485J with my new job. Expect RFEs. If your medicals are out of date, expect an RFE on that. Yeah.
Probably this is September 2012. So this is and what categories is?
Well, he said it's going to be current on January 1st, and I believe him. I don't have to look at the visa bulletin to believe him.
Yeah. So, I mean, nothing to do before January 1st except be ready to be a total pain on January 2nd and create all kind of noise. See what happens.
Sometimes we will send, people have asked us to send a letter. I'd call it an adjudication letter saying, hey, my case is current. Just calling your attention to it. Please, do the needful.
Yeah,
like
EB2, October 1st, 2012.
Yeah. So current. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's possible to send in the supplement J if you don't think they have it, and send the medical exams in. You take the risk of them getting lost, and sending a letter along with those things saying, hey, my date's current. I think you might need these things to approve my case. Go for it, guys. Yeah. So from Jayanthi Kumar.
1 2. Hi, Sam and Brian. My advanced parole that was filed in 2023 April is approved. Wow. Now that's supposed to be denied due to many travel abroad.
Yeah.
All right, 2 of 2.
Yeah.
My latest AP that's supposed to be approved is denied a day later. Denial letter says the AP already approved. It has no further appeal.
So here's my beef about that policy, Sam. It's that, is it even published anywhere? Hey, we're going to deny your advanced parole if you travel while it's pending. Because the best of my recollection, they just started doing that one day, and everybody said, "Huh?" And everybody's just sort of absorb that fact, and that's one of the problems with
Would you
Unwritten
travel
policy.
outside the country under the scenario using the advanced parole, Brian?
Well, yeah, but I mean, is
Would
that
you travel
policy?
outside the country using this advanced parole?
Oh, well, should I
Would
use
you?
it? That's
Could
a
you?
fundamental question. We can't change the past facts, but should they? It's a duly. I want to say yes, but I'm having trouble doing so, Sam,
Yeah, me too.
because
I
who's
want to say
guaranteed?
yes. I want to say yes, but I'm having a hard
Okay,
time.
I'll make the yes the yes pitch, and I think I know what the no pitch. The yes is it's a duly given USCIS document, right? It's valid on its face, right? However, there's an underlying issue with it. That's kind of it. Is it an if are you entitled to the benefit if it's an application they shouldn't have approved, right? That's really kind of the rub there.
Well, the yes also has to do with the fact that they denied the approvable one because they had another one. Therefore, that means to me,
They
arguably, it's an approval.
they applied
They
some
just-
sort of logic to this to make sure you got the one entitled to. Well,
Yeah.
maybe in the practical world, Sam, what do you think you come to the border with your shiny advanced parole, which even though you're a little bit scared of it because it was approved under strange circumstances, do you think the customs? What do you?
You cannot take that risk, Brian,
I know, I know.
because you have an I-485, unless you have an H-1B or
Yeah,
an L visa.
yeah,
You cannot take that risk for them to file a NOID when you're outside the country and they deny you the advanced parole and you're not able to come back in time, or they may not let you back in because they have a NOID on the advanced parole. You cannot take that risk.
yeah.
It's that simple. It's not the kind of thing worth taking a risk.
Well, somebody can choose to take that risk, but yeah, I would agree with the second half of it. If it's not one worth.
I don't think anybody in their right mind will choose to take that risk.
I think well, we'll pull the audience and ask them.
Well,
But
yeah,
I mean, this poor
let's be
guy.
real.
I mean, I'm gonna tell you why, because he's been waiting for almost 2 years for that advanced parole. He's about to throw that damn thing through the wall. He's so frustrated with. I mean, 2 years almost, Sam. If you want to travel, and if there you go. Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah, we don't recommend. We do not recommend it.
I can't recommend it. Travel is inherently risky, and you don't want to add to that risk.
I agree.
Yeah. So from Sachan, received green card October 2022. Kids born in 2017 and 2020 have SSNs and U.S. passports. Anything to be concerned about during the new administration? Here, I'll give you my broad answer. There's so much to be concerned about regarding the new administration, but we don't have any specific information that would give us concern regarding that. Again, it seems to be that the headline is let's go after birthright citizenship for the children of people who are unlawfully present in the United States, right? And this doesn't seem like it would fall in that category.
I'm sorry you have to ask that question.
Yeah, I know that's the part that stinks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry you have to ask that question.
Yeah.
I don't see you should worry whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about this scenario, but no, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of for anything to happen here, it has to become manifest with policy changes at USCIS which are going to be fought out in court ultimately. Ultimately they're going to have to deny a child's certificate of citizenship or passport, and that's how it's going to be resolved in the courts.
Yeah.
If I had the answer, well, yeah.
Don't worry about it. You're fine. Your kids are fine, my friend. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah. So priority date June 2023. EB3 rest of the world is here, and I guess that means maybe that's what Evgeny's priority date is. I don't understand why USCIS holds dates so long and don't advance them. Well, I think
First of all, it's not USCIS.
That's true.
Although the data is coming from USCIS, but it's the State Department.
This is very true.
I'm going to give you the straightforward answer, and then we'll go to the more complex one. The dates don't advance because there's a numerical limitation. And for rest of the world, EB3, you have to subtract 140,000 times 28% minus 10,000 for other workers. whatever that number is, subtract China, India, Mexico, and the Philippines 7%, and then you come out with this magic number, and then they spread it out on uh, 4 quarters, and they move it based on the number of cases filed versus the number of visas available, and they manage the flow of cases that way, the filing of cases that way. Now, they can definitely move them forward and then retrogress them. I think retrogressing is so unpopular, and people they get so much anger
Yeah.
when cases get retrogressed that they're trying very hard not to retrogress to a fault. I think um, the key for them is to be able on December 31st to approve the last case for the last available number without retrogressing and without over progressing, and that is a very difficult task.
Do you think they have a little party, Sam, on the last day of the year for the last visa that they approve? You know, the last September 29th. You know,
No. Here's my answer.
yeah,
Nobody gives a damn. Probably there's about two officers who are
yeah.
working their butt off trying to make that number work. Nobody cares. The party begins at that office at 6 p.m. or at 5 p.m. or 4 o'clock. They're done working, and those guys are trying to manage the last two numbers or three numbers to issue those cases, maybe somewhere at consulates or somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody cares that much, but I could be wrong.
No. I'm going to address Evgeny's question from my perspective a little bit. So why can't they move the dates forward? And I imagine it this way. You probably have a pending I-485 already, and you're saying, well, you know where my number is. If you have dates available for mine, can't we just move it forward? You have my case in hand. I think one of the things that impacts their ability to move it is the old first come, first out. If they were to move it up to June 2023, what about the people who, they're working on at the consulate, the people who they haven't gotten an I-485 yet? I think they're sort of required to meter it to basically make sure that people, that they don't just give away green cards to people who already have the cases in the hand. They basically have to keep it move slow such that people who have priority dates in the interim for whatever reason haven't been able to file yet, they don't get jumped in line, because they do know, in theory, they should know, like, ooh, we have, a ton of cases from between, EB3, rest of the world, from between April and June that we haven't seen. That we've only seen 25% of cases with priority dates in that category. It seems like we can't move it all the way forward to June because there's a lot more cases in there, and we'll break our first in, first out rules. That's my thought.
Yep.
Yeah. So from RB.
In new H-1B final rule, DHS proposes H-1B use or lose selection. Can you throw some highlights? What do they mean if the H-1B visa stamp? Do we need to enter USA or lose it?
So I will admit I haven't gotten to that part of the regulation. If in the comments you can give me some sort of a specific spot where you're interested in learning our thoughts on, please do. If you can cite the section, bonus points. Bottom line is it's something that arguably could use some clarity because USCIS sometimes doesn't seem to know their own rules on cap counting. And that's that,
Well, obviously they're strengthening the program, right? But we've not talked about the modernization, and that there has to be probably some kind of a follow-up clarification. But if I find something, I'll probably share with you.
Yeah.
Because we've been focusing on a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It mainly thinking about the H-1B program. Yeah. How's it going to impact people who are here? Because the old use your H-1B or lose it. I presume they're talking about cap counting, where that's a question that gets asked by a small amount of people. But I didn't read anything about changing of the recapture rules or anything like that. Where getting rid of that concept.
Well, there's going to be a lot of things that are hidden that we are going to find in due course, because it's a 140-page document. and I perused it, but I have not read every page. Um, and things will be coming out in due course. So I don't have an answer to that question,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right now.
Yeah, I've made it about 50 pages in, and that's mostly commentary, which is some of the most interesting stuff to read. But yeah. So a question from Ignacio saying, we missed this question. I will just warn everybody that the software that we use for our streaming, the platform that we use, it sometimes doesn't give us the questions if you enter them in before we go live. So there is that. But here's what it says. I am planning to file Supplement J once my I-485 has been pending for 180 days. Where can I find the info? Where can I find Where can I find the info that I want to refer to for finding a similar job? Is it the title, the description, both? In which document should I look that up?
Excellent question.
Yeah.
Well, it is if you have filed a labor certification, it is in that document, in the employment labor certification that was filed by your employer or the original employer. In that document, the job description is really what's the most important. How can you find it? Either ask your employer; they may not cooperate. You can do a Freedom of Information Act request, requesting a copy of your I-140 petition that was filed by your employer. You're entitled to receive most of the content of that, which will include the job description. That's where you find it, the easiest way to find it.
Well, I interpret this question entirely differently than you, Sam, and this underlines the point. Here's why you should really, take these answers we give here as a grain of salt, because I interpret this thing totally differently. I thought Ignacio was asking the question, how do I figure out what USCIS thinks about, how do they make that determination whether it's a similar job? Do they look at the title, the description, or both? And the answer is they look at that and then some. And where you find that information is the USCIS policy manual does have a page in it about same or similar occupation for green card portability. And that's where you'd find that. And your answer will be, it's not just the title, it's not just the description, it's the nature of in theory, if they really want to dive down deep on this, it can be the nature of the organization, the salary, it's whether or not it's supervisory, it's whether or not it could be the job code that gets assigned to it. It's more than that. It's the holistic big view of the job. Fundamentally, Sam, can you ever remember getting into a fight with USCIS about same or similar occupation?
No, because
We've
no,
had our
no, but in all honesty, it doesn't mean that they are open to accepting everything
yeah.
necessarily. It means that we really
It means we vet ours really really well,
we
frankly.
advise our client, what works, what doesn't work,
Yeah.
and they go and they find the right job for themselves. But
Yeah.
it begins, to me, it's very simple. It begins with, is this new employer paying me about the same money? If they're paying me about the same money, it has to be related to my other job, by gravity.
Sure.
By gravity. Okay. Now, that is a good start. If there's a big disparity between what you will be paid and what you have been paid, taking off geographic changes, then I think you're on the right track. So that's step number one. Step number two, there is, like Brian said, a very, not complex but quite detailed guideline. Same or similar job classification. If you Google same or similar job classification policy manual, USCIS policy manual, and you can find that page. And it came from a memo that USCIS released 10 years ago that talks about codes and examples and all kind of goodies.
Well, Sam, speaking of the nature of this and the information we give being fleeting, you used to have to look it up in the policy manual, and I don't know if I've never seen this website before, but I'm looking at a website right now that says called "How USCIS Determines Same or Similar Occupational Classifications for Job Portability Under AC 21," updated December 27th, 2024. So I don't think this website existed a couple days ago, meaning they literally have a website about it, as well as a link to the policy manual on that website. So I don't imagine it's going to say anything different from the policy manual. And obviously, if
Is that
something,
a .gov?
It's on the USCIS.gov. It's part of the USCIS website. It's a brand
Why
new.
don't you throw in that link in there?
I'll throw in the link. I mean, sometimes I mean, I will admit that my inclination would be to skip over a link like this and go directly to the policy manual, because of course it is. But I think this might be a new publication from them, which it might simplify things a little bit for the layperson who reads it, which is fun.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Brian, we come to the end.
Yes.
We would like to answer more questions, but we are hitting 7 o'clock. Come back next week, Eastern time at 6 o'clock sharp. We will spend another hour and answer more questions and have a discussion and have fun with you guys. Thank you so much for listening to us. Until next